adopt Exhibit G as your sworn testimony today?
Yes.
I would move for admission of Empire's Exhibit G and Empire's revised Exhibit G and all the exhibits attached thereto.
Mr. Rankin,
No objection.
Mr. Molander,
No objection.
Mr. Beck,
No objection.
Mr. Suazo.
No objection.
All right, it will be admitted with attachments.
Mr. McShane, what changed in your revised testimony as a result of new text refined analysis?
As I said, and has been testified to previously, they integrated in their second pass the EMSU 679 core data, as well as integrated some data from a study that was found. And once we got the ranges between the two models, I decided in conjunction with other engineers that we would go with the low side estimate in their model in order to move forward with our analysis.
Turning to your Exhibit G1A, what is the importance of this slide?
So this is a regional slide of showing the EMSU, the EMSUB, and AGU. Overlaying is the top of the San Andreas structure map. The first thing to point out is just, again, that the structure shows that there's a structural closure in the San Andreas on the east and running northwest to southeast over IMSU itself on the right side of the unit. And then on this map, we're also showing the permitted and existing saltwater disposal well locations. And then the third thing I want to point out is that there in purple, there is a cross-section line that will refer to a cross-section we'll see on the next slide. And that these wells that will show in the cross-section are located or drilled through and injecting into a unitized interval.
And do the proposed wells, the Goodnight's proposed wells, lie in the crystal area?
Yes, they do. And I'd also like to point out that in this structure map, just as well, the 679 we showed oil down to minus 762 subsea, and that'll be important when we're talking about injecting down depth.
Why is it significant that the Goodnight's proposed wells lie in the crystal area?
Well, in the dynamics of petroleum geology, your highest point on the structural closure should be your best wells. And if you're injecting into that zone, you're going to have a better chance of damaging the reservoir, as well as the water you're pushing down dip is going to move up dip as well towards those crustal regions.
And just to make sure there's no confusion here, this Exhibit G1A was attached to your testimony, right?
That is correct.
Was there any change made to this exhibit for your presentation today?
The only thing we changed for the presentation is we dropped off all of the existing producing wells other than the disposal wells, just to make it clearer to see on the screen.
Turning to the next slide, can you describe this cross-section for the commissioners?
Correct. This cross-section that you saw on the previous slide, the cross-section line, this cross-section includes Goodnight's current saltwater disposal wells. It is, in addition to the next, we'll see proposed permits. Then you also see some additional producers in the IMSU, and this is a structural cross-section, so we're moving from the basically the southwest to the northeast up structure.
So the red line, the solid red line, and the dotted red or dashed red line, what does that indicate?
The dash and solid red line is the unitized interval as agreed upon in the field rules. And I've also put that in the call out box, the language down the bottom right where it says the unitized interval shall include formations from the lower limit defined by the base of the San Andreas Formation to the upper limit defined by the Grayburg Formation, and or 100 feet subsea datum, whichever is higher. And so what we can see is that where these wells fall within that unitized interval, as well as where Goodnight's injection intervals are in conjunction to that unitized interval, showing that they're below the San Andreas top, but that they cover a large chunk of our unitized interval zone.
And what do the green brackets indicate?
The green brackets indicate where we are identifying a residual oil zone.
Here we
And
go.
Just real quick, and to show, just because in the where the green brackets, like for the MSU 713 and the 673, et cetera, just because the bracket ends is just ending because of the log, it does not mean that we think that the ROZ actually ends there in the San Andreas. We suspect that it continues below that.
Here we're going back to G1A with a slightly different rendition. Can you explain to the commissioners why this is significant?
This is again just a similar map to the first one, but again, it's for just showing a different cross-section line that you'll see in the next slide. The cross-section moves basically along the apex of the structure, the structural closure itself, and it's going to include permitted wells as well as existing producers.
And this next cross-section corresponds to the last slide, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So you see logs for the wells that are producing, and then just placeholder logs for the proposed permits by Goodnight. Again, associated with based on their proposed depths, where they would fall within the unitized interval.
And again, you have the green brackets showing the residual oil zone, is that right?
That's correct.
Can you describe what this map shows?
So this map is illustrating the 7 wells that New Tech did their log analysis for us when we initially gave them the scope of work. We actually gave them 9 wells, but they settled on 7 based on log quality, as well as the fact that they covered some portion of the San Andreas Reservoir. 4 of these wells, 4 of these analyses were performed recently on 2005 vintage open hole logs in the San Andreas to evaluate for hydrocarbons.
And what are the key points here?
So the key points that we want to point out is in one of these wells that Goodnight did that New Tech did their analysis was Goodnight's Rhino SWD well. According to New Tech's analysis, the oil in place per section for the Rhino SWD well we calculated was 15.6 million barrels per section. We also wanted to show that the wells are airily distributed across the MSU, and they're representing both down dip and up dip reservoir, so we should get a good spread. There's some on the apex and some coming off of the flanks of the apex of the structure itself. And on average, these wells cover greater than 350 foot of the San Andreas Reservoir. With 2, the Rhino SWD and the MSU 746, they covered over 1,000 foot of the San Andreas. Our oil in place volume calculations based on New Tech's analysis that we calculate on a per 640 section basis range from 15.6 million barrels per section to 62.2 million barrels per section. If we exclude the MSU 713, which is a well that they to get that spread, we excluded the 713 because it only had 125 foot of logged San Andreas, and so it was all calculating out smaller volumes. And then on the left side, just want to point out, because I know it's been in discussion, we're referring back to testimonies of Ops Geologic. In black next to the key points, we included in this presentation ops geologic ranges for the oil in place as well. So for the Rhino SWD, ops geologic had 19.86 million barrels per 640 to 33.02. And then for the range across these seven wells, ops geologic calculated out 12.76 to 69.47 million barrels of oil per 640.
And when you say a 640 section basis, you mean a section which consists of 640 acres, correct?
That's correct. And what I want to point out is that even though that for the most part, and we'll see this in the coming slides, their numbers are on trend, even though there are differences.
What does Exhibit G3B show?
So Exhibit G3B is showing the new tech wells analyzed from east to west in a cross section. And they're showing that in the red boxes, that there are hydrocarbons present throughout the San Andres interval, from the down dip most western edge to the up dip most eastern edge of the IMSU. If you look, those red boxes fall below to well below the San Andres itself. And then what I also like to point out is, like, at the base of each well log in green, we have the calculated oil in place number based on new text revised numbers. And then below the oil thickness in black, we see ops geologics low side to high side range for each well as to be able to compare it to.
What is the black indicator in the second to last track of each well?
The black indicator is hydrocarbon presence, oil saturation.
And what is the green indicator in the last track of each well?
That is showing the calculated oil in place.
Turning to Exhibit G3C, does this cross-section provide the same information for different wells?
Correct. This cross-section shows the new tech analyzed wells from northeast to southwest. And so again, they're showing where we're showing hydrocarbons present and calculated in the San Andres.
And that's indicated in the red box here.
Correct.
And then here down in below each well, you've got something in brown, oil thickness. What is that?
That's the calculated net feet of oil thickness.
In Exhibit G3D, does this slide illustrate the result of the new tech analysis for the EMSU 658?
Correct, it does. It shows the petrophysical analysis. You see the hydrocarbons present in the San Andres. And then we also showed our calculation based on NewTek's work of 30.29 million barrels per section calculated.
And does this reflect the Scenario 5 revised analysis that Mr. Dillowin testified about?
Yes.
And what do the green and red colors indicate?
In the third track from the right, yes, that is perm calculations based on NewTek's analysis. So you're seeing basically the cooler colors are the lower perm, the higher red colors are the higher perm zones within the lithology.
And just to the left there, the blue and turquoise colors, I'm losing my cursor here.
The track just to the left that shows water saturation versus hydrocarbons in black.
And where's this well located?
So the 658 well is located on the eastern side of the IMSU, on the top, basically on top of the structural apex itself, of the top of the closure.
Why is this location significant?
Because we would expect that it would be some of our better reservoir rock. And when we look at the breakdowns of it, you see an average porosity of 10.9% and average oil saturation. And this is just in the San Andres of 39.0%. and an average perm of 2.19 millidarcies.
Does this slide show the new tech result of its analysis of the EMSU 673?
Correct. And again, it's showing the same things in the log deliverable that we have screenshot on there, showing the important tracks to point out are the hydrocarbons in place versus water saturation, and then the permeability to the right of that. And again, just off the structural closure, we're still seeing average porosity of 13%. We're seeing an increase perm of 6.12. And we're seeing a consistent oil saturation average of 40% right there.
And in some, this shows the presence of hydrocarbons in the San Andreas interval. Is that right?
Correct. And just, it's hard to see, but in these wells, but the top of the San Andreas is shown in exhibit. There is at the very top of each log, you'll see a green line that goes across, and that is the top of the San Andreas.
And I can't recall whether we talked about this with the last slide and the last well, but here in green, you've got an oil in place number.
Correct. We did mention in the last one, and this one we're calculating out 31.68 million barrels per section. Again, a very similar number, still on top of the structure itself.
And this well is located on top of the structures.
The structural trap, yes.
Okay. And that's significant for the same reason as it was significant for the EMSU 658. Is that right?
That's correct.
And does this slide show the result of the new tech analysis of the EMSU 660?
Yes, it does.
And same information here, is that right?
Correct. Same information here. We calculate, again, hydrocarbons present in the top from the San Andreas down. Again, the top of the San Andreas is on the log. It's a thin green line across the top, so it's hard to see. But the calculated oil in place is 48.62 million barrels per section. Again, seeing an average oil saturation of coming down just slightly, but we're also coming down the backside of the structural closure. So you're seeing an average oil saturation of 34.4%, but porosity is maintaining around 11.5%, and average perm is 2.5.
And the numbers that you just discussed, those are in the lower left-hand corner right here in this box, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Can you describe what is reflected on Exhibit G4? Whoops, what happened there? Here we go.
Yes, so Exhibit G4 is we had one of the wells that NewTek did the analysis on. So again, you'll see in the red box to the right, which is NewTek's well, it's the analysis of the EMSU 660. You'll see the hydrocarbons again present. You'll see the permeability. But the key takeaway we wanted to take from this is that we compared it with the mud log. Again, the mud log is taken in fairly real time, measuring the gas while drilling, in addition to depth calibrating the cuttings as they come up based on lag time, and placing a description correlating with the gas curves. But what I want to point out is that the gas curves in the same depth as shown in the red box in NewTek's log, and those gas curves exhibit the same characteristic you would expect to see hydrocarbons present, as well as the cutting descriptions all talk about fluorescing, every one of them through that zone. So again, the gas curves and the cuttings indicated oil in place.
Turning to Exhibit G7B, what does this cross-section illustrate?
So the G7B, what we want to point out with this is the 679 well, which is in the middle, and we have a little call out. You see the core description from the 679 in the column where, it's an illustrated core description showing the fractures present between the zones of the, transition zone between the San Andreas and the Grayburg. But what we also want to point out is that you see there's a light blue call out box across the cross section just below the San Andreas, if you're trying to correlate that same interval across, we see so many changes that it's hard to say that the lateral faces are consistent. And so therefore that in addition to the fractures present identified in the core, we do not expect to see a lateral facies continuity across the field, that there are changes, therefore not a consistent barrier between the zones.
What is important about Exhibit G8?
So Exhibit G8 is from the sales packet from when Empire purchased the MSU. And what we want to point out is that Exxon themselves identified within their sales packet the San Andreas, the same San Andreas ROZ present, the main oil column in the Grayberg. They were using porosity cutoffs of 6% or greater. But the key thing is also look at the fact that their calculated oil in place for the San Andreas ROZ is very similar and on trend with what two independent analysis within our group done by Ops Geologic and by New Tech, that we still get kind of in the same range of that 900 million barrels to 1,000 over. So again, this is from their 2021 sales package. And in the sales package, while this is just one slide, they mention ROZ in 5 of 7 pages. And this is why, we just again want to point out that protecting this resource is critical to the MSU, but also the MSU-B and the AGU. And that, our current of the core well log and sub-production tests confirm that there is oil or CO, or that their CO2 and EOR can recover substantial reserves from this field.
Do you have any additional testimony to present today?
No.
Thank you, Mr. McShane. Pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Rankin, technically you've got 19 minutes until 5 p.m. Do you want to start or you want to, what's your preference?
I'm kind of fried.
Okay.
Wouldn't mind resuming in the morning. That's okay.
That's fine. Mr. Rosatos, is that fine? Is that okay with the commission?
Yes, let's call it an evening. We will resume again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for your willingness, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and especially you, Ms. Tejas, and you, Ms. Apodaca, as well as the witnesses. All right, we'll be off the record.